You have replanted the same 3 spots in your front bed every spring for the last decade, and by August they are dead again. Same money at the garden center, same work planting, same holes in the beds by midsummer. That is not gardening. That is a subscription service to your local garden center, and business has been very good. 11 perennials on this list cancel the subscription. Plant them once before August ends and they survive winter, come back stronger every spring, and quietly multiply into free plants while you sit on the porch. Number 1 blooms in September when everything else in your garden has already quit. The reason to plant now, not next spring. Number 11, Daylily Happy Returns. The plant every gardener over 60 already knows about, and half of them are still growing the wrong one. Stella Doro Daylily, the yellow daylily, planted in front of every gas station and strip mall since 1980, is the wrong daylily. Chain garden centers pushed her by the pallet under patent protection for 2 decades. Happy Returns is the daylily to plant instead. She is a descendant of Stella, same compact 18 inches, same soft yellow color, same reliable reblooming from June straight through October. But she beats Stella on 3 specific things that matter in the American garden. She holds up in July humidity down south when Stella collapses. She is resistant to daylily rust and leaf streak, the 2 diseases that turn Stella into a brown mess by August. And she does not need deadheading to keep blooming. Stella does. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun to part shade. Any soil that drains. Drought tolerant once established, effectively unkillable. Here is the plant once payoff. 1 Happy Returns clump planted this July becomes 6 to 10 clumps in 3 years. When the clump gets crowded, take a sharp spade, drive it straight down through the middle in place. Lift half the plant out, replant elsewhere. No digging the whole thing up, no fussing. You just made yourself a free daylily. Do it again 3 years later. That is how 1 plant fills a whole border for the price of nothing. If there is a specific problem spot in your yard where you cannot get anything to grow, dry shade under a tree, wet corner, hot slope, driveway strip, drop it in the comments with your zone. I match a plant to it in the pinned replies over the weekend. Number 10, Siberian iris. Almost nobody plants Siberian iris anymore, and that is exactly why you should. The bearded iris got all the marketing for 100 years, and Siberian iris quietly outperforms her on the one thing that matters. You plant her once and she stays put for 30 years without asking anything of you. Slender grass-like foliage rises 3 feet high and looks like architectural sculpture all season, even when the plant is not blooming. The flowers open in late spring and early summer, deep purple, sky blue, white, yellow, bicolor, smaller and more delicate than bearded iris, but just as elegant. And then the foliage carries the plant through the rest of the year as a vertical accent that structures the whole bed. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun to part shade. Prefers moist soil but tolerates average conditions once established. No pests worth naming. No diseases worth mentioning. Deer walk past. Here is the contrarian rule with Siberian iris. The less you disturb her, the better she gets. Bearded iris needs dividing every 3 or 4 years. Siberian iris will bloom happily in the same spot for 20, sometimes 30 years without division. If you want to divide her for free plants for the rest of the yard, dig up the whole clump in early fall. Cut through the tight root mass with a sharp knife or a serrated garden saw and replant. Otherwise, leave her alone. Insider cultivar short list. Caesar's brother is the deep purple classic that has been in cultivation since the 1930s and outperforms almost everything newer. Butter and Sugar is the pale yellow and white bicolor that reads as sunshine even in shade. Ruffled Velvet is the deep royal purple with velvet texture that photographs like an oil painting. Number 9, Yarrow. Yarrow is the perennial you plant in the spot where nothing else works. That sun-baked strip along the driveway, the hot slope on the south side of the house, the septic mound that dries out in August, the compacted clay bed the previous owner gave up on. Yarrow does not just tolerate those spots, she thrives in them. Flat plates of tiny flowers rise on 18 to 36-inch stems in midsummer and bloom for weeks. Colors run the whole warm spectrum. golden yellow, coral, salmon, brick red, cream, white. Butterflies work them all day. Cut for the vase, they last a week. Zones 3 through 9, full sun. And here is the contrarian rule that every gardener over 60 gets wrong. Yarrow wants poor soil, sandy, gritty, well-drained, low fertility. Plant her in your good and rich garden bed, and she sprawls open by August. Fertilize her once, and she flops the rest of the season. Extra nitrogen elongates the stems until they cannot hold the flower heads up. Plant her hungry. Do not amend the soil. Do not fertilize. Do not water once established. Neglect is her ideal condition. Inside her cultivar shortlist. Coronation Gold is the strongest upright form, 3 feet tall, stays vertical all season. Deep yellow plates that read from 100 feet away. Moonshine is the silver foliage yellow that stays 2 feet and looks like a piece of jewelry. She spreads by underground runners into a colony. Every 3 years, you can lift a division from the outer edge with a shovel and move it elsewhere. Free yarrow forever. Number 8, Coreopsis Zagreb, threadleaf tickseed, the perennial that gives you the most flowers per square foot of any plant in this list. Fine, ferny, threadleaf foliage, completely different from the standard Coreopsis daisies, topped with hundreds of small, bright yellow star-shaped flowers that open in June and keep opening straight through frost. Zones 3 through 9, full sun, average to poor soil, drought-tolerant once established. Mount Cuba Center in Delaware ran a 3-year Coreopsis trial, and Zagreb was one of the top performers for long bloom, disease resistance, and winter survival. Here is the contrarian move that turns Zagreb from a nice performer into a non-stop performer. In early to mid-July, when the first flush of flowers starts thinning, take a pair of hedge shears and cut the entire plant back by 1/3. Straight across, no sentiment. 2 to 3 weeks later, she comes back thicker than before with a second wave of flowers that runs until first frost. Skip the midsummer cut and she still blooms, but sparser, and she is done by September. Zagreb is specifically the cultivar to plant because she stays upright. Moonbeam, the more famous threadleaf cultivar that won Perennial Plant of the Year back in 1992, is prettier in flower but floppy by August. Zagreb is the workhorse, 2 feet tall, holds herself up, blooms harder. Free plants happen through underground rhizomes. The plant spreads outward into a dense mat about 3 feet across in 5 years. Lift a spadeful from the edge every few years and move it. The mat is dense enough, weeds cannot germinate through it, so Zagreb doubles as ground cover in a sunny spot. One thing before number 7. If plant once, come back forever is the direction you want to take your whole garden. The full method for building a garden that runs this way lives in a book at henrysgardensecrets.com. Long version of what this channel is. I won't bring it up again. Back to number 7, Liatris, blazing star, the native perennial almost nobody plants in a home garden, and that is exactly why you should. Liatris grows perfectly in an ordinary sunny bed and gives you something no other plant on this list gives you, a vertical purple candle 3 to 4 feet tall, covered in fuzzy flower spikes that butterflies and native bees swarm all summer. Here is the small piece of botany that makes Liatris unforgettable. The flowers open from the top of the spike down, the opposite of almost every other flowering plant, which opens bottom up. That means the top blooms are already fading, while the bottom half is still tightly closed and about to open. So the plant looks in bloom for weeks longer than any comparable spike flower. Genuinely uncommon in the plant world, and once you have seen it, you will notice it every year. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun, well-drained soil, Liatris rots in wet clay, native to the American tall grass prairie from the Dakotas down through Texas. Here is the plant once payoff. Liatris grows from underground corms like a bulb, but flatter. Plant one this summer, it blooms next year, and every year the corm produces offsets that grow into more plants. 5 years later, one corm is a colony of 15. Dig them up in fall, separate them like tulip bulbs, replant wherever you want, more purple candles. Number 6, hardy hibiscus. Rose mallow, the perennial that stops traffic. Flowers the size of a dinner plate 10 to 12 inches across, in reds, hot pinks, whites, and every combination, opening in late summer when almost nothing else is putting on that kind of show. Neighbors will stop and ask what it is. That is the annual guarantee with hardy hibiscus. The plant is native to the American Southeast in its wild form, and modern breeders like proven winners have taken it and produced the summerific series that dominates the market now. Cultivars I trust: Cherry Choco Latte with pink flowers and near black foliage. Perfect Storm with pink and white flowers on compact 3-foot plants. Midnight Marvel with deep red flowers and burgundy leaves that red from across the yard. Zones 4 through 9, full sun, prefers consistent moisture. This one wants water, unlike the Yarrow at number 9. Average to rich soil. Zero problems with pest or disease worth mentioning. Now the contrarian warning that every new hardy hibiscus owner needs to hear before spring. This plant dies completely to the ground for winter. Every stem, every leaf gone. In April and early May, when everything else in your garden is leafing out, your hibiscus spot looks like bare dirt. Do not dig her up. Do not panic and replace her. She emerges late, usually mid to late May, sometimes early June in the coldest zones. Once she wakes up, she grows fast, 4 to 6 feet in a summer, and puts out dozens of dinner plate flowers by July. I planted my first hardy hibiscus around 2010, could have been 11, an early summerific called Cranberry Crush from a plant sale. That April I was convinced she was dead and bought a replacement. Then in mid-May, she pushed up. That original plant is now a 6-foot shrub that gives me 40 flowers a summer. Free plants happen through division of the crown in early spring as the plant starts to emerge. Dig, split the crown with a sharp spade, replant. One clump becomes 3 in about 5 years. Number 5, Japanese anemone Honorine Jobert. The perennial that solved a problem I did not know I had until she filled it. A tall, elegant white flower that blooms in shade from mid-August straight through October, the same window when everything else in your garden is winding down and looking tired. There is almost nothing else that gives you fall bloom in shade. This plant is the answer. Perennial Plant Association named Honorine Jobert the Perennial Plant of the Year for 2016. That designation is not marketing. It goes to plants after years of trial performance across the country. And Honorine Jobert earned it by being nearly indestructible in a well-chosen spot. Zones 4 through 8. Part shade to full shade. Prefers moist, well-drained soil, but establishes drought tolerance after her second summer. Deer resistant, the rough texture of the leaves means the deer walk past. Here is the honest caveat. Japanese anemone is slow to establish. The first year, she looks like nothing much, a small clump of leaves, maybe 3 flowers. The second year, she doubles. By the third year, she is the anchor of your shade bed, 3 to 4 feet tall, covered in single white flowers with yellow centers that dance on wiry stems for 8 weeks straight. If you plant her expecting instant impact, you will pull her out before she wakes up. Plant her and wait. Honorine Jobert specifically is the cultivar to plant. Other Japanese anemone cultivars, Robustissima and September Charm, spread more aggressively and can take over a bed in 10 years. Honorine Jobert is calmer. She colonizes at a manageable pace, and after 5 or 6 years, you can divide the outer edge in early spring for free plants. Number 4, Solomon Seal, the native shade perennial that gives you architectural elegance in a spot most gardeners have given up on. Arching stems 2 to 3 feet tall, with dark green oval leaves and rows of small white bell flowers hanging underneath in late spring. In fall, the whole plant turns clear gold, one of the prettiest fall colors of any perennial. Zones 3 through 8, part shade to full shade, prefers rich, moist woodland soil, but this is where Solomon Seal earns her spot on this list. Once she is established, she tolerates the dry shade under mature trees where nothing else survives. Not her preference, but she handles it quietly for decades. The small native Solomon Seal from Eastern American woodlands is the one most gardeners know. Great Solomon Seal is the 4 to 6 foot version that reads as a small shrub in the back of a shade bed. Both are pass-along plants from grandmother gardens. Both hold up for 30 years without complaint. Deer, rabbits, and most insects leave her alone. Free plants happen through slow rhizome spread. Every 3 or 4 years, cut a chunk off the outside edge in early fall with a sharp spade and plant it wherever you want another arching stem accent. If you want the showstopper foliage version, look for the variegated Japanese Solomon seal, Perennial Plant of the Year for 2013. Green leaves edged in bright cream that glow in a shady corner. Same plant behavior, dressier foliage. Number 3, Brunnera Jack Frost. The shade perennial that gives you full season color without needing to bloom. Heart-shaped silver leaves with fine green veins. The surface looks like it was dusted with frost from the day the plant emerges in April until the first hard freeze. In spring, before most other shade perennials wake up, a cloud of tiny sky blue flowers rises above the foliage on wiry stems. Looks like forget-me-nots, technically related to them. Perennial Plant of the Year for 2012. Zones 3 through 8. Part shade to full shade, prefers consistently moist but not soggy soil. Deer resistant. The fuzzy leaf texture stops them. Here is the plant once advantage. Most shade perennials are flower dependent. You get the show for 2 or 3 weeks, then the plant is just green foliage until fall. Brunnera Jack Frost inverts that. The foliage is the show, and it stays luminous silver from April through November. The flowers are a spring bonus. You are getting 7 months of active garden interest from a single plant instead of 3 weeks. 12 to 15 inches tall, 18 to 24 inches wide at maturity. Lives 15 or 20 years in the same spot without complaint. Insider cultivar notes. Jack Frost is the original and still the most widely available. Looking Glass came out of Jack Frost with even more silver, almost pure silver white foliage for gardeners who want maximum brightness in a dark corner. Silverheart is the improved version bred for heat tolerance in southern gardens. Free plants happen through crown division in early spring before the foliage has fully emerged. Dig the plant, cut through the crown with a sharp knife, replant the divisions. 1 Jack Frost becomes 3 in about 5 years. Combine Jack Frost with the Japanese anemone from number 5 and the Solomon seal from number 4, and you have a 3-plant shade bed that runs from April silver foliage to October white flowers with almost zero maintenance. Number 2, bearded iris, the perennial that was in your grandmother's garden, in your mother's garden, and belongs in yours, because 80 years later, she is still one of the toughest, showiest, longest-lived perennials you can plant in an American garden. Silky flowers in every color of the rainbow on tall, upright stems in late spring and early summer. Some cultivars rebloom again in September. The sword-shaped foliage stands vertical all season as garden architecture. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun, 6 hours minimum. Poor to average soil. Drought tolerant once established. Effectively the plant that thrives on neglect. My grandmother's Ohio front border ran a 50-foot row of pass-along bearded iris from the 1940s. Nobody in the family remembers who first planted them. That row is still blooming every May in the same spot 80-something years later. Nothing else in the garden has that time span. Here is the contrarian rule every new bearded iris owner has to hear. The rhizomes go on the surface of the soil, not buried, not 2 inches deep, not 1 inch deep. The top of the rhizome should be visible, exposed to sun, with the roots trailing down into the soil below. Deep planting is the single most common way gardeners kill a bearded iris. The rhizome rots in wet, buried conditions. Planted correctly at the surface, she thrives for decades. The only 2 things that kill a bearded iris: overwatering. Do not water an established clump ever, unless there is a 2-month drought. Over-fertilization. A light dose of low nitrogen bulb food in early spring is the whole feeding schedule. Anything more encourages iris borer and rhizome rot. Free plants happen through rhizome division every 3 to 5 years, in July or August after the plant has bloomed. Dig the whole clump, wash the rhizomes with a hose, cut apart with a sharp knife, keeping a fan of leaves and a healthy rhizome and a few roots on each division. Trim the leaves back to about 1/3 of their height. Replant surface level. 1 clump becomes 5 to 10 new plants in 1 afternoon. Insider cultivar sources. Skip the big box garden center. Bearded iris. Rhizomes are small and cultivar names generic. Order from Shriners, Superstition, or your local Iris Society plant sale. Rhizomes 3 times larger, historic named cultivars, often lower price per plant. Number 1, New England Aster Purple Dome. Here is the reason to plant everything on this list right now before August ends instead of waiting for next spring, because this plant blooms in September and October when almost nothing else in the American garden is still putting on a show. Dark purple flowers with yellow centers on a plant that has been quietly building itself since spring. Purple Dome is the cultivar to plant. Compact, 18 to 24 inches, dense mounding habit, no staking. Dark purple flowers over an inch across, covering the whole plant from late August into early October. Mildew resistant, which matters because older New England aster cultivars looked terrible from mildew by August. Mount Cuba Center in Delaware trialed the whole aster genus, and Purple Dome held up as one of the top performers. Native perennial, zones 3 through 8, full sun, prefers moist, well-drained soil, tolerates short, dry spells. And here is the payoff. She is the last major food source for pollinators, bees, butterflies, and migrating monarchs on their way south before winter shuts the garden down. Free plants come through spring division only. Do not divide asters in fall. The shallow crown is too vulnerable to winter heave. Wait until late March or April as new growth emerges, then split with a spade. Plant her this weekend before August ends. Late summer roots have 6 to 10 weeks to establish before winter. Next fall, you have color when everyone else in the neighborhood has bare beds. That is the whole promise of this video, and Purple Dome is the plant that proves it. Buying, planting, losing, repeating is not gardening. It is a subscription to your local garden center, and business has been very good. These 11 perennials cancel it. Plant them once this month before August ends, and next fall, your beds are still full while your neighbor is back at the clearance table. Drop your zone and which one you're planting first in the comments. I read every one.